So it looks like there's been box sets removed, including Space Wolves and Horus Heresy, and not great news for people trying to land the new Death Guard Battle Force. There's a few teasers and hints from Games Workshop, including some new Space Wolf miniatures this week, and what looks like the first glimpse of a new Knight miniature. Though maybe the most unexpected news is that I will be going on a short holiday, but there'll still be plenty of videos in the interim. Let's do a big roundup of Warhammer news and a few announcements for the channel. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today I thought I'd do a big roundup of Games Workshop's news, reveals and releases. It's been a busy week for 40k with Death Guard and World Eaters releases, though for this one I thought I'd go a bit more broad and talk about all the other things that have been happening, round up their recent releases, any new teasers and model reveals, and as mentioned a couple of channel announcements. In this one I thought we could take a look over the World Eaters and Death Guard releases. The Death Guard seem to have sold out dead fast, and there's been a massive amount of scalping of their limited books. There's a new model teaser that looks pretty likely to be our first glimpse of Imperial Knights. The Space Wolves Combat Patrol's been removed from the UK, and it's probably not around in other places for much longer. A bunch of Horus Heresy kits has gone sold out online, which seems it could be going hand in hand with a great big new big box for that, and potentially some Mark V armour in plastic maybe. Space Wolves are getting a new miniature reveal tomorrow. Games Workshop seem to have stopped posting on Twitter, and I'll round up a few more minor reveals and a quick look at 40k releases to come. Finally, I just finished up with a couple of channel announcements. As mentioned, I'll be away this week, unable to make new videos, but there's plenty in the backlog, and I'll mention the channel giveaway once more, with a big one for the Space Wolves launch box finishing in a few days' time. Loads to talk about then, so let's jump straight into it. Starting out, let's talk about the World Eaters and Death Guard release, which went up for pre-order on Saturday. So I was interested to check in on what the supplies on the Battle Force box sets and combat patrols have been like. Unfortunately, it was kind of bad news for the Poxwrought Vector for people trying to get their hands on it. It was looking like it was probably going to be the most popular one, and given Games Workshop's trend with these first launch Battle Forces, they often tend to be in short supply. Looks like that sold out really quite quickly in the UK, Europe, USA and Canada. Australia and New Zealand still seems to have some stock in the Games Workshop web store, though so far I haven't seen any discount retailers having any copies of this left, so feel free to give them shouts out in the comments if you do know somewhere that's got some. It seems likely that at least some people have missed out on that one, which isn't great feels given that it was quite a popular box set, and Death Guard are looking kind of fun from their new codex. I guess a bunch more will be going to brick and mortar stores, and some stores might get second waves of them, but overall in most places around the world, looks like Games Workshop didn't make enough to meet up to demand. For the World Eaters Gorestorm Slaughter Pack, it was maybe slightly better, though still gone very quickly in some places. Looks like it's at least still on the Games Workshop web store in Australia and New Zealand and the EU and UK. It does seem to have gone quickly in the USA and Canada once again. They all seem to have less stock than elsewhere for some reason. This one was looking significantly less popular with its big 8-band and Jackal focus, though still useful enough if you wanted to add those units. Despite having more supply in some places, again Games Workshop seem to have been super stingy to the discount retailers with both of these box sets. After looking through a whole bunch of channel affiliate retailers and sponsors, the only one that I've seen that still seems to be selling the Gorestorm Slaughter Pack is Firestorm Games in the UK. I'll leave them links down below. Hopefully that might be of use to some people in the UK who wanted one. For the Combat Patrol box sets though, this was kind of an unusually good weekend for them. 3 different ones for Emperor's Children, World Eaters and Death Guard, and all of them seem to have been broadly popular for 40k, which is more than you could have said for the vast majority of 10th edition Combat Patrols so far. In general, Combat Patrol boxes, they tend to make far more of them. They don't tend to readily go out of stock quite so quickly, though it still seems that the Death Guard one has sold out from Games Workshop in the USA and Canada once again. I feel like that does underline that it was a particularly in-demand one. I feel like the unit mix is quite good. Whether or not individual discounters have got enough of them depends on how many they ordered. Again, taking a look at the channel affiliate ones that support Auspex Tactics, Wargame Portal have a few of the World Eaters and Emperor's Children, at least at time of recording. The Death Guard one's gone though, as that's out of stock in the USA. In the UK, Element Games and Firestorm Games both have all 3 to pre-order, though the Element Games ones look like they're going to be a slightly delayed dispatch, I guess coming from the second wave of them. In Canada, their supply seems to be quite good. Furnace Workshop and Toy Snowman both seem to have all 3. Looks like they still have the Death Guard one as best I can tell. Tash and Go Deep in the EU has World Eaters left, though in Australia Gap Games and Warhouse both seem to be sold out of all 3 of them. Even if Games Workshop have good stock, feel free to check those out, link down in the video description. Any sales through those help to support Auspex Tactics, so a big thank you to any using those. Finally, for the release roundup, as expected, it's not great news for the limited edition incredibly expensive codexes. They're doing Demon Primarch ones for each of the deity codexes, so we had the Death Guard and World Eaters ones go live. I still kind of struggle to get over the price for these. £150 in the UK, $250 or around 190 euros or so. Again, it seems to be the same story for these as the Emperor's Children, selling out ridiculously quickly, and then at least a good chunk of them being directly listed on eBay straight after. Just from a very quick napkin math count, looks like around about 50 of them have already sold on eBay for around about double the price for a lot. Seems that these were sufficiently exciting to drive a lot of demand, and perhaps a surprising surprising amount of people seem to have been willing to pay, say, around about £300 or $350 for one. As usual, not exactly a great look for Games Workshop, not great feels for people who wanted one. Maybe not a great situation to encourage Games Workshop to basically just charge what they like for these. Let me know if you tried to get your hands on one of the fancy codexes and whether or not you were successful down in the comments. Next up, we've got what looks like an Imperial Knight teaser. Maybe not 100% definitely Imperial Knights, could be some sort of other Imperial vehicle type thing, but that would be my first guess from the looks of it. This was from Games Workshop's rumour engine earlier in the week, and you can tell the part is quite a big one by how it's painted. A big circular thing with what feels like a sort of Mechanicum symbol in the middle, maybe not quite the same pattern as the ones on some of the Knights as you can see here, but feels in the same sort of vibe to me. My guess is Imperial Knights, partly because of the size of it, and also because we had the sort of end-on preview of the Siege Drill for the Chaos Knights, which felt like it was in a similar sort of tone. Looks to me like it could either be a power plant for a Knight, or maybe the centre of a great big shield generator perhaps, like the one on the Lancer here, or could be the end of a power plant on a gun, though I'd say that's maybe a bit less likely. Let me know your thoughts on it down in the comments below. I'm certainly hoping Imperial Knights do actually get a miniature release in 10th edition. They didn't get anything specific in 9th besides the Knights aimed at Horus Heresy. The Knight books shouldn't be too far out at this stage. They're sort of expected around about summertime by Games Workshop's roadmap, and it seems that we've already got very good ideas as to what the Chaos Knights are getting, a great big siege drill and a massive flamer. So unless we get more information, it seems like they're probably going to be on the same night, and I'd guess an expansion of the Abhorrent kit, particularly given that the standard Chaos Knight kit has been taken down and could well be coming back with another frame in the box, much like the Imperials got last time around. I guess if we do get a Knight with a great big siege drill, it's going to be absolutely devastating into enemy Titanic classes. Hopefully they manage to make the Flamer Knight good. Most of them have been kind of weak so far in 10th. Before we move on to some kits that have gone missing and a few others, I'll just give a quick shout out to today's video sponsoring Greytide Studios Upgrade Parts. They're basically a 3D printing miniature company that make a whole bunch of fancy upgrade components that can fit rather well with Space Marines and things, and can be one option to add a whole bunch of fun chapter theme to a bunch of their ranges. You can order imprinted bits from them from a few sources. In the USA, their bits packs are available from Wargame Portal, for the rest of the world from Only Games shipping out from the UK, both of which are links down in the video description. For their ranges, they've got some seriously fun stuff. Their Crimson Lords were kind of remarkably well received, perhaps in particular coming out at a similar time to Games Workshop's Blood Angels update, which in my opinion really didn't do justice for the Sanguinary Guard or Death Company. They've got a whole bunch of really cool miniature parts, including character upgrades for a medic, winged jump packs and some cool weapons, and some nice chevron shoulder pads and great big heavy chainswords and things. Could be of use to some of you. Another range they've got are the Primal Hounds, maybe quite relevant at the moment for those seeking to add a bit of Viking and Nordic flair to their armies. They've got core sets with things like shoulder pauldrons, helmets and backpacks, lots of different individual weapon sets with things like two-handed weapons and themed shields, all with some runes. I really quite like their ancient armour as well, one option to add some theme to the otherwise slightly more bland Primaris Redemptor kit. They've got some Eternal Pilgrims bits for your more nightly themed chapters too. In any case, feel free to check them out, links down in the video description. I'll leave links both to Only Games and to Wargame Portal, and a big thank you to them for sponsoring this one. Moving on though to talk about a few more kits going missing, and first up we have Combat Patrol Space Wolves. Looks like there's not long left for this one. As ever with the Combat Patrol boxes, looks like they've been going out of stock, usually a few weeks before their range updates in 10th edition. The Space Wolves are going to get their big launch box in the not too distant future, and eventually they'll release a new combat patrol for the faction as well, hopefully including some of their shiny new revamped miniature range. In any case, this one's the one that's going away. It's the one with the Primaris Battle Leader, 5 Reavers that you can use as Hounds of Morkai, 10 Intercessors and an Invictus Tactical Warsuit, and a couple of copies of the small Space Wolf Primaris upgrade sprue, though if it's anything like the Dark Angels, Blood Angels and Black Templars, a much better upgrade sprue will likely be coming out alongside their big launch. This one seems to have gone missing from the UK and EU web store, though it's still up on the Australia and New Zealand one and the US and Canada one, though as we've seen with plenty of other combat patrols, it likely won't be around on those ones for too much longer. Basically for this one it's now or never if you wanted one. I would say that this one isn't one of the better received ones that Games Workshop's had though, definitely falling into the trap of being a bit more generic Primaris as opposed to adding loads of faction theme. Maybe the Battle Leader being the biggest draw to actual Space Wolf collectors. I feel like Reavers and the Invictus Tactical Warsuit are miniatures that appeal to a subset of 40k collectors, though maybe not every Space Marine player. You guys have rated this one as one of the lower appeal Combat Patrol box sets, so fingers crossed it's a good opportunity for Space Wolves to get something cooler. With this one starting to go away though, maybe it means the Space Wolf launch box isn't too far around the corner for Games Workshop announcing it. For another set of kits that seem to have intriguingly gone away, it seems that Games Workshop have also put a massive amount of Heresy kits on sold out online, and with rumours coming of a new Heresy edition, it could have some interesting implications. A big thank you to Poppy Appletree for explaining the removed range to me quite so well on Patreon. I'll admit I'm not quite as familiar with the Heresy range versus the 40k one. Basically, the upshot seems to be that a whole bunch of Mark V and Mark IV armour kits have been removed from the range, marked as sold out online. As mentioned, there have been rumours of a new edition of Horus Heresy, which could mean that some of those units might be getting remade in plastic sooner or later, and potentially even in another big launch box set for the game. If Games Workshop are planning to make the Horus Heresy a 3-yearly edition update cycle type thing like Kill Team and 40k seem to be, then that should also fit rather well with it coming out this year. Could be interesting for lovers of power armor out there. Maybe the Mark V will get a plastic kit with a bunch of Space Marines. Maybe Mark IV might get a few more options if several of their kits are going away. Games Workshop still have loads of choices left to redo for all the resin kits that need to be remade into plastic for that range. Otherwise, things that seem to have been taken off sale are the Javelin Speeders, Morticar and Tank variants, and the Sokar Stormbirds. That one's kind of notable as one of the single biggest and most expensive kits in all of Warhammer. I guess that could imply that some of those might be getting plastic updates. I don't know if they will do so for the enormous Stormbird. That feels like in the sort of meme territory alongside plastic Thunderhawk, really. In any case, if there's a new edition of the Horus Heresy, it likely means that this one's being replaced in the Age of Darkness box set. I feel like this one was a pretty well loved box set. The new more modern edition of the Heresy with a vast amount of Marines, 40 tactical Marines, 10 Terminators, a massive Spartan, which was kind of wild to see in a launch box set, plus a Contemptor Dreadnoughts, 2 characters and the big rulebook. It was definitely an expensive box set, but also really quite a good value one, at least compared with how Warhammer's normally sold. And I certainly saw some of the miniatures cropping up in 40k armies as a result. You could use them for some proxies for things like Intercessors for the Loyalists if you wanted to, though in particular they felt like they were quite good for Chaos Marines. You could make everything work. Tactical Marines as Legionaries, Terminators for Terminators, the Spartan as a Land Raider, and the Contemptor as a Hellbrute. It does feel kind of appropriate to me to have the Heretics fighting in older patterns of armour as well, if it fits their theme. Looks like this one won't be around for much longer though. It's marked as temporarily out of stock in the US and UK web stores, so again probably a last chance to buy if you want to pick up this one. Maybe if it is being replaced we might hear something about it in the Dallas Open reveal. I'd guess that's going to be Games Workshop's next reveal show online, and that'll be around the 26th of May. Seems like that could be a big news and big interest release if it is. After a rather big 40k release, it seems that Games Workshop's choosing to take a rare week off the pre-orders. I feel like they normally tend to keep things going for their specialist games and things like that. I want to say that sometime in the year they often do a sort of stock count, maybe around the summertime. I don't know if that's now though, or that's usually a bit later. In any case, they had nothing to show on the Warhammer community page for pre-orders, which I must admit I'm kind of relieved about for not being here next week. I would have certainly found it a bit annoying if they jumped into the Space Wolves and Thousand Suns. What they did tell us though is that there's going to be at least one Space Wolves model reveal. They said that there's going to be some kits to show off and they could hear the howling of wolves. So basically Space Wolves are coming out. It'll almost certainly be Monday, judging by their normal Warhammer 40k model reveal patterns. And while there's definitely plenty of options that they could go for, if I had to guess, I'll either go for Logan Grimnar or Wolfguard Terminators. They seem like the two kits that are absolutely the single most likely ones to get redone for 10th edition. There's definitely other possibilities that they could do though, and I'll certainly aim to talk about them in their own video when I'm back. Otherwise, for a few more minor things, another thing that got pointed out to me, this time by Non-Queen Kaya, was that Games Workshop seems to have stepped back from posting on Twitter or X. Much appreciating you making me aware of that one. But basically it seems like their Twitter feed has fallen silent for around about a month now. Looks like the last post was on March, but they still seem to have been posting on their socials with their Facebook pages. No idea what's necessarily the trigger of that. Could be some sort of internal company disruption with their social media teams or something. It maybe feels a little bit more like it's probably a deliberate choice, at least in the short term, given it seems to have fallen at the end of a quarter. But basically in the meantime, it looks like it won't be the place to get Warhammer community posts shared and things. So for all I know, they might just be taking a month or so off and be right back to it in the near future. Otherwise, for a couple of other minor reveals that I found interesting this week, there was a new spin-off novel from the Dawn of Fire series called Master of Rights. Ultramarines focus for this one from a character from the series. Always interesting to get a few more contemporary era 40k updates. I quite enjoyed the Lord of the Rings previews that they had, some Drakes of Rune, and a big ballista crossbow thing for the Corsairs of Umbar. Those will both be cast in Forge World resin. It is kind of fun just the sheer amount of Forge World designs that they keep on going with these days. Seems like Games Workshop are seeing them as a way that they can keep designs coming with lots of low volume but high price releases. Otherwise, more generally for 40k things on the horizon, I guess for updates and reveals over the next few weeks, the first thing we'll likely get is that Space Wolves model reveal. Then within the next 2 weeks we'll have the Death Guard and World Eaters points going tournament live, and they'll start to hit tournaments, I guess from next weekend and the one after that. The Death Guard are certainly looking rather fearsome. Hopefully the World Eaters will have something they can do though. And then for Warhammer releases, the next two will be the Space Wolves launch box and the Thousand Suns Codex and their associated releases. I'm not sure which order they could come in. I guess they could do a double bill weekend like the World Eaters and Death Guard. Might seem kind of appropriate for some bitter rivals there. Otherwise, we've got Kill Team Typhon to come soon, the Raveners versus the Servitors there. I'm sure that'll be popular given some cool new Tyranid stuff. We'll be waiting on a few individual releases, both for Kill Teams from the last box set and the World Eaters and Death Guard characters that came in their Battle Force box sets. Could be a long wait for them though, as we saw for some of the codexes last year. And then beyond that, we've got that Armageddon Crusade book, the new tournament mission deck, balance updates, and then the Grey Knights Codex and Battle Force sometime after all that. And then Knights and Templars following after that, it seems. As mentioned, the Dallas Open could be the next reveal show. That's their next big tournament, and that'll be somewhere around the 22nd to the 25th of May. Sorry, I think I said 26th earlier, seems a bit earlier than that. If they're going to be dropping some occasional Space Wolf reveals, then I guess it remains to be seen whether or not they'll have done all the Space Wolf reveals by that and be ready to move on to next things, or get the next wave of Space Wolves showcased there. Otherwise, seems most likely to be Knights, Miniatures, Templars, or maybe some more Space Marines, given that we've had that drop pod revealed and a bunch of chapter-specific things teased. Then by their normal timeframes, I guess the balance update might be a little bit after that. Those cards coming out likely hand in hand with a really big release, probably around the start of June, but could be a bit earlier or later. Lots of stuff on the horizon to keep us busy from a 40k perspective, it seems. Finally, I'll just round up with a couple of bits of channel news. As mentioned, I will be away this coming week for a rare holiday on the channel. So basically, for the first time in really quite a long time, I'll not be able to cover fresh news as it drops, as I'll be going on a great big walk. This will be the first time I've actually been away from recording videos this long in a row, since all the way back when I started the channel back in 2019. So almost 6 years worth of being on fairly high trigger alerts. I think the longest period it had in that time was around about 3 or 4 days from that. It's not that I don't go away on holidays and things, but I just generally tend to take recording equipment with me and then catch up on news videos and things after hours, and maybe live up to the YouTube comments a little bit with a bit of sleep deprivation. It won't be an option this time though, but I have managed to sufficiently get ahead that there's a bunch of videos recorded in advance. There'll be at least one new video each day, plus one YouTube short. It's definitely been a bit of work to get ahead with that, while all the Death Guard and World Eaters things have been coming out this week, but it will be nice to have a bit of real time away and come back fresh. I'll certainly be looking forward to catching up with the week's news in around 7 days' time or so. I'm sure I'll be all very frustrated when Games Workshop reveals cool Space Wolf models and maybe some sort of surprise balance patch or something that I can't cover, but this time I'll just have to catch up in due course, and it'll probably do me some good. As ever, I just count myself very lucky that I'm able to do this as my full-time thing, so a massive thank you to you guys for allowing that to happen. I'll certainly try and work to keep as many videos coming and cool stuff to watch as I possibly can, so I do like to keep to my at least one video a day goal by recording ahead if possible. Finally though, for the last bit of channel news, I'll just give a quick shout out to the May Auspex Tactics giveaway, as this will basically be going live and happening at the start of May, so just a few days left to enter for this one if you'd like to. As I mentioned a few times before, the May channel giveaway will be for 8 winners to get a Space Wolf launch box, the big one with the Bloodclaws, Grey Hunters, Head Takers and the characters, plus the Space Wolf Codex. As ever for the Auspex Tactics giveaways, there's 2 equal ways to enter, both of them links down in the video description. Either you can support the channel on Patreon for any amount, that's the main thing that supports the video production and gets a few advantages too, such as seeing certain videos early, but gets you automatic entry into the prize giveaways each and every month as well. Alternatively, there's completely free entry via boosting the algorithms and supporting the channel on social media, and to enter there you do these 3 actions basically. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the Facebook page, that's linked in the video description as well. And then to enter the draw, a giveaway post appears on the 1st of May. Respond to that with a photo of any 40k mini or imagery, along with your name and the date handwritten within the same photo, and you'll be entered in. The last bit with the photo is just to deter Facebook bots and spammers and make sure prizes go to real hobbyists out there. After that, the draw will be done with a random number generator and announced on the channel update video on YouTube around the 4th of May. It might just be a tiny bit delayed as that's the day I get back, but I'll try and have it out very shortly after. In any case, models will be posted after I've received my orders of them. Feel free to check out the links in the video description if you'd like to enter for that one, either via the Patreon or Facebook. In any case, I'll leave that one there for now. A massive thank you for listening as always. Let me know your thoughts on the removed box sets and the teasers for Space Wolves and Knights. Look forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. As mentioned, a big thank you to Greytide Studios Upgrades for sponsoring the video. Check out their physical bits packs linked down in the video description, either in the USA via Wargame Portal or the rest of the world via Only Games. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I'll certainly be aiming to keep up with Games Workshop's news and rumours and post 40k stuff every day. The Patreon page and the Facebook pages are links below if you'd like to enter the giveaways or just support the channel more generally. But in any case, an absolutely enormous thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.